So think about a time when you worked at a company and you hated your job so much that you quit. And you quit and you went to go work for another company. And the other company does the same thing that the first company does. The company is the same size. It's in the same geographic location. It's just a different company. And you're doing the same type of work. But now all of a sudden you love your job. What changed? It's not the work, you're doing the same work. It's not the industry, you're in the same industry. So what changed? It's the experience. It's the experience that you got from that second company that you did not get from the first company that you were a part of. So what is employee experience? If there's one thing that you remember from anything that I talk about today, I hope it is this. Employee experience is a combination of 3 environments that your organization can control: culture, technology, and space. Culture, technology, and space. This is what employee experience is for every employee at every company around the world. Culture, technology, and space. This is what I call the employee experience equation. And when you work for an organization that has a great culture, when you work for an organization where you work in great spaces and you have the tools and resources to get your job, that is when your full potential becomes unlocked. So as an employee, that's what you should ask for. This is what you should be looking for. And as a company, this is what you should be striving to create. So let's talk a little bit about these things. Let's start with physical space. Physical space is 30% of the overall employee experience. And physical space is exactly what it sounds like. It's the space in which employees work. It's the art that hangs on the walls. It's the spaces that you see there. It's everything in your vicinity of when you're working. Now, the interesting thing about physical space is that the space in which you work acts as a symbol that represents what your company stands for. So, for example, if you think of your favorite superhero, Wonder Woman, Batman, Spider-Man, whoever it might be, they all have their symbols that they wear, right? In the eyes of your employees, the symbol of your company is the space in which people work. And here's a simple test that you can do. You write down your company values on a sheet of paper. And you walk around your company and you see, are those values actually coming to life? So for example, if your company values are things like trust, innovation, put the customer first, have fun. If you walk around your space, you walk around your office, do you see that? Do you see people having fun? Do you see innovation? Do you physically see what it means to put the customer first? If not, then the words are meaningless. Because I can promise you that all of you in this room work for companies where you probably have similar values. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people in here work inside of a company that have innovation as a company value. Put the customer first as a company value. Your values are not unique. What is unique is how your values come to life. Values are just words. It's the actions behind those words that make them meaningful. So physical space, I still think, has a tremendous amount of importance in how we work. I know during the pandemic, all of us were virtual. All of us were working from home. But there's been a lot of research which has shown that we spent so much time working remotely that we felt disconnected from our colleagues. We felt disconnected from the mission and the vision of the organization. And so I actually wrote a somewhat controversial article a few weeks ago where I said that for the next few months, I believe that every employee should be working in an office just for a few months and then go back to hybrid work. And that's because we need to realign. We need to redefine. We need to re-engage. We need to bring people together to get reconnected with what the purpose of the company is, what the mission is, what the vision is. And so many of us have struggled with that during the course of the pandemic. And this is why I think you're seeing so many organizations around the world telling their employees, come back to work. Because we're so disconnected, we're so fragmented that it's challenging. It's not just about being productive. You don't just want to be productive. You want to grow, you want to innovate, you want to do things that you couldn't do. Being productive just means that you're going to go out of business later. Being productive means that you're treading water. Being productive means that you're just at the baseline. You don't just want to be productive. You want to go above and beyond. Not only that, but if you're an employee at a company, you should want to spend some time in an office. If you have aspirations of becoming a leader inside of your company, you want to become an executive, a senior leader, maybe even one day the CEO of an organization, you should want to spend time with your peers. You should want to spend time with your coworkers. You should want to demonstrate your leadership skills. You should want to be visible. You should want your leaders to see you. So if you have those aspirations of becoming a leader, a senior leader, or a CEO inside of your organization, do yourself a favor and spend some time in person with your people. Because it's very hard, for example, to learn how to lead when you're only sitting behind a screen. It's very hard to work on your executive presence, your communication, your inspiration, your motivation when you're always behind the screen. Doing it in person is not the same as it is behind a screen. So physical space, 30% of the overall employee experience. And I'm a big believer that there's value in physical space. But I also do believe in the value of hybrid work as well. Next, we have technology. Technology is also 30% of the overall employee experience. Technology is the central nervous system of any company. When you think about all of these concepts around the future of work, real-time recognition and feedback, collaboration, hybrid work, all of these things, analytics, AI, all of this is because of technology. Technology is the central nervous system behind any organization around the world. I mean, imagine for a minute if the pandemic happened 10 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago, where we didn't have these tools and these technologies that we have now. The impact would have been far more disastrous. Technology actually saved a lot of businesses around the world. Now, a lot of us, when we think about technology, we always think of technology as an IT thing. Right? You think of, I'm not an IT, technology is not my problem. But think about what happens to you when your technology at work breaks down. You become frustrated. You become disengaged. You become resentful. So when technology breaks down, it's not just an IT thing, it's actually fundamentally a human thing. So technology is not just an IT problem, it's also a human problem. I remember a couple years ago, I went to go speak to a large bank. And after I was talking with a lot of the executives, I was interviewing a lot of the employees. And one by one, I would interview a lot of these employees, and they would all tell me that they loved the spaces in which they work. Marble floors, marble walls, they worked by a beautiful lake, their offices were gorgeous. They loved the corporate culture. People treated them well, leaders coached them and mentored them. But they were also all looking for a new job. And I was very confused. I said, why would you want to look for a new job? You work in this beautiful office. You have this great culture. Why would you want to leave? Because of technology. They were getting frustrated with doing their jobs. There was no hybrid work. There was no communication and collaboration at scale. They were duplicating each other's work all the time. Things were getting lost. Things were getting thrown all over the place. So technology can fundamentally be a human problem. Now, there are a few interesting points about technology. One is, I think that technology is going to make it very clear who the bad leaders are inside of a company and who the good leaders are inside of a company. So if you think about what a good leader does, a good leader fundamentally focuses on two things. A good leader makes decisions and gets people to move in the direction of that decision. You inspire, you motivate your employees so that they want to go in the direction of that decision. What does a bad leader do? A bad leader only focuses on the decision. A bad leader says, here's what I decided, go do it. And if you don't do it, you're fired. Now, we see a lot of what's happening with technology, especially with OpenAPI, with ChatGPT, all these really fascinating technologies that we're seeing. If you're a bad leader and all you do is focus on making decisions, and now you have something like ChatGPT that can make those same decisions, then what value do you bring to your business? What value do you bring to your organization? None. Because technology can do that same thing that you're doing. But if you're a good leader, you can motivate and engage and empower and inspire your people. You can coach them. You can help your employees become better versions of themselves. Now, all of a sudden, your value to the business increases 100x. So the influx of technology that we're seeing inside of our organizations is going to make it very clear who are the good leaders and who are the bad leaders. And so one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is to focus on the human aspects of work. Coaching, mentoring, empowering, inspiring your people. These are the things that technology cannot do and likely will not be able to do in the near future. So if you can do that, you become immensely valuable to any company that you are a part of. The other aspect of technology is that I'm a big believer in technology. But one of the big challenges that companies are faced with is how do we balance technology with humanity? How do we make sure that we use technology, but at the same time make sure that our organization stays human? Because you need both of those things. If you only focus on technology, then you will be quick, you'll be able to have data and analytics, you'll be productive, you'll be efficient, but you won't have the best people who can actually execute on things. If you only focus on people and you attract and retain the best talent and you don't focus on technology, then you might have great employees, but you're not going to be able to execute. You're not going to be productive. You're not going to be efficient. You're going to have a hard time scaling. So you need both humanity and technology. So I'm a big believer in using technology, but in a way that makes your organization more human. So whenever you're thinking about how do we use technology inside of our business, ask yourself, how do we use technology in a way that makes our organization more, not less, human? And we see this inside of organizations around the world. You see this in companies like McDonald's. You see this, there's a big chain of restaurants in the United States called Sweet Green. And both McDonald's and Sweet Green started using a lot of technology in their restaurants. So if you go to McDonald's, you go to a Sweet Green, now when you order your food, you don't order it from a person, you order it from a computer. And in the case of Sweet Green in the United States, when you order your food, they have a lot of salads. It's a robot that makes your salad. It comes out in the perfect proportions from little containers into a bowl, and you get your salad. And then a human is there at the end to add the sliced avocado on top, to customize your order, to make sure everything looks good. And so in a lot of restaurants, we're seeing technology being used in a way, but in that way, the restaurants are focusing more on experience. The employees are bringing you your food. They're asking you how your day is going. They're asking you if they can get you anything else. They customize orders for you. So technology is being used in a way not to create distance between employees and customers, but to remove distance, to allow the employees to focus on the human aspects of customer experience, not on the mundane aspects of their jobs. And more organizations are starting to do this. So technology is a powerful tool, but it has to be used in a way to create more human connection and relationships inside of the business, not to create distance. And this is a challenging thing to do because we all get very excited about technology. But just ask yourself, how can we use technology to make our company more human, not less human? So technology, again, 30% of the overall employee experience for companies around the world. This is the central nervous system of your organization, of any organization. Whenever we talk about the future of work, none of what we talk about is possible without technology. I mean, especially when you think about something like ChatGPT and generative AI, it's really going to put the focus and the emphasis on the humanity inside of your company, on building relationships, on creating connection. This is why there is still value to the in-person side of work. So again, 30% of the overall employee experience for technology. Next, we have corporate culture. There are a lot of different ways that we use to talk about what does corporate culture mean. I like to think of corporate culture as the side effects of working for your business. The side effects of working for your business. So when I was working on my book on employee experience, I took a break and I was watching a show on TV. And in the middle of a show, there was the commercial. And during the commercial, they talked about a prescription drug, and they started talking about all these side effects for the drug. Nausea, weight gain, skin discoloration, bleeding from the eyes, all of these terrible side effects. And I thought, wow, who would want to take that kind of a prescription drug? But then I thought about it and I realized that most people around the world actually work for a company that has the exact same side effects. Where from prolonged exposure, you gain weight, you lose your hair, you argue with your spouse. Some cases you're bleeding from the eyes. We've all been to those meetings. So why is it that you wouldn't take that kind of a prescription drug, yet you would work for that kind of a company day after day, week after week, and month after month? Didn't make any sense. Now, the side effects of working for your company can actually be good. They can be learning and growth, a sense of empowerment, engagement. The side effects of working for your company don't have to be negative. So I want you to ask yourself, what are the side effects of working for your company? And when you're applying for a job, ask yourself, or ask the person who's interviewing you, what are the side effects of working here? What's going to happen to me if I take this job? Now, one of the really interesting things, the most relevant things I think about corporate culture is part of what my newest book is about, which is Leading with Vulnerability. It's a book that just came out a few weeks ago. And I was very interested in this topic because we talk a lot about vulnerability. I'm sure you've all heard about it. You've probably read books on it. And I was really interested, is vulnerability in your personal life the same as vulnerability at work? Because in your personal life, it's very clear why it's important to be vulnerable, because you create connections, relationships with friends, with your spouse, with significant others. But what about at work? At work, you have a very different dynamic. At work, you have a boss. At work, you have employees. At work, you have a hierarchy. At work, you have a salary. You have projects, deadlines, customers. Is vulnerability in your personal life the same as it is at work? And more importantly, what if you're a leader at a company? Is vulnerability for you the same as it is for everybody else? And so when I interviewed a lot of CEOs for this book, I asked them this question, and all of them told me that they were faced with two big challenges when it comes to vulnerability and leadership and culture. The first challenge is that they understood the value of vulnerability, but they weren't sure how to make it real at work. The second thing that these leaders told me is that they were challenged because on the one hand, their employees want their leaders to be strong and competent and confident and visionary. But on the other hand, these employees want their leaders to talk about their emotions and feelings and struggles and challenges. And so these CEOs were telling me, which leader am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be the strong, visionary, competent leader? Or am I supposed to be the leader who talks about my feelings or emotions? And so what I have come to understand from interviewing these 100 CEOs and from surveying 14,000 employees around the world is that vulnerability at work is not the same as it is in your personal life. And it's why I always tell people, don't be vulnerable at work. Instead, lead with vulnerability. What's the difference between the two? Vulnerability is about exposing a gap that you have. A gap in knowledge, a gap in experience, a gap in emotion. And so if you show up to work every day and you talk about, I'm sorry I made a mistake. I need help. I don't know how to do that. I'm not having a good day. This is how. If you show up to work every day only talking about your gaps, at a certain point, your leaders and your peers are going to look at you and they're going to say, maybe this isn't the right job for you. So instead, don't just talk about the gaps that you have, demonstrate what you're trying to do to close those gaps. So for example, if you make a mistake at work, don't just go to your leader and say, I'm so sorry I made a mistake. I know how important this was. I really messed it up. I'm sorry. Instead, say, I'm so sorry I made a mistake. I know how important this was. Here is what I learned from my mistake. Here are 3 things that I'm going to do in the future to make sure that that mistake never happens again. I'm not just talking about the gaps, but I'm demonstrating what I'm trying to do to close the gap. That's the difference between just being vulnerable at work and leading with vulnerability. Don't just talk about the gaps, demonstrate how you're trying to close the gaps. One of the very common ways that we see this happen all the time is when somebody gets promoted for the first time at a company and you become a leader or a supervisor for the first time and they tell you, oh, congratulations, you got promoted. Say something to your team. Introduce yourself. Talk about yourself. And what do we see a lot of employees do? The biggest mistake I see first-time leaders make. They go in front of their employees and they say, hi, my name is Jacob. I'm a first-time leader. I've never done this before. I'm so excited to be here. I know we're going to have a great time. We're going to make an impact and we're going to make a difference. I'm so excited to work with all of you. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound like a terrible message, but you also have to ask yourself, did I instill any kind of confidence in my leadership abilities? Are the people that I just gave this message to going to look at me and say, that's a leader I want to work for? Probably not. So instead of saying that, you could say something like this. Hi, my name is Jacob. I know I'm a first-time leader. I'm so excited to be here. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure that I'm the best leader that you've ever had. I'm going to be mentored by one of the executives at this company, and I'm going to be meeting with them every week for an hour, and we're going to be reviewing how things are going. I'm working with an executive coach who's going to be giving me feedback. Here are 3 leadership books that I'm currently reading. I encourage you to read them as well so that you can keep me accountable. And I value your feedback, your ideas, and your opinions. Share with me and help me be the best leader that you've ever had. That's a very different message. Again, I'm not just talking about my gaps. I'm talking about what I'm doing to close those gaps. And that is the most powerful thing that you can do. That's the kind of corporate culture that I wish organizations had around the world. Don't just talk about the mistakes and the failures. Talk about what you are doing to close those gaps. It's also in your best interest. It's going to future-proof your career because people are going to look at you and they're going to say, well, you know what? I know they made a mistake or they don't really know what they're doing yet, but I love their initiative. I know they're learning new things. We should keep an eye on that person. I have a feeling that they're going to become a leader in this company soon. Workplace culture is 40% of the employee experience. One of the most important things that you can do, again, lead with vulnerability. This is about two things: competence and connection. Competence and connection. If you only focus on competence, if you only focus on the leadership side, then people are going to think you're a robot. If all you do is focus on the numbers and doing good work and get things done on time, people are going to look at you and they say, well, this person really knows how to get their job done, but I don't feel any connection. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel inspired by this person. And the flip side of that is also true. If you only focus on vulnerability, then people are going to say, oh, we have a great relationship, we have a great connection, we have great chemistry, but I don't think this person is the right leader. They haven't demonstrated that they know what they're doing. So you have to be able to do both: competence and connection, leadership and vulnerability. Unfortunately, I never worked for an organization that I thought had a great corporate culture. One of the first jobs I had after I graduated college was a company in downtown Los Angeles. And when I interviewed there, I was told this wonderful story about what it would be like to work there. And I was told I'd be making an impact and making a difference and doing all of this really great work. And so I took the job, and I had a 3-hour daily commute in bumper-to-bumper traffic. But again, I took the job because of the story that I was told. In a few months into my job, I'm doing data entry, cold calling, PowerPoint presentations. And one day, the CEO comes out of his beautiful corner office, and he says, Jacob, I have something very important for you. Come over here. And so I got very excited. And I ran over to the CEO, and I said, yes, what is it? And the CEO takes out his wallet, and he gives me $10, and he says, I'm late for a meeting. I need you to go to Starbucks and get me a cup of coffee. And I thought, seriously? This is why I worked so hard in school, is to get you a cup of coffee? And that was one of the last full-time jobs I ever had working for an organization, ever. So corporate culture is not about the things that you necessarily see or touch or taste or breathe in. Corporate culture is about how you feel. And one of the ways that you feel corporate culture the most is from your leaders. And this is why this concept of leading with vulnerability is so crucial. Because if leaders do it, employees will do it as well. And this isn't just about perks and benefits. This is about creating value where you believe in and inspire and motivate those around you.